head was completely bare. For a heartbeat, I thought it was a strange dream, but the rough stubble under my fingertips proved it was real. The silver hair I had cared for so many years was gone. Someone had cut it while I slept. In the bathroom mirror, a stranger stared back at me. And then the name formed on my lips, Bellamy, my daughter-in-law. I had spent weeks at the salon preparing for this day, ready to celebrate Marty's marriage with quiet pride. One single cruel act had erased all of it. My hands shook as I called my son. "Marty, your wife came into my room last night. She cut off my hair. I'm bald." Silence. Then his voice cold with disbelief. "Mom, that doesn't make sense." An hour later, he arrived with Bellamy. Her perfect blonde waves caught the morning light as she put on a performance of shock. "Oh my goodness, what happened to your hair?" she gasped, feigning innocence. I told the truth. She denied everything. Marty looked at me as if I were the problem. "Maybe it's stress. Maybe you should see a doctor," he said. Embarrassment. That was all my son felt. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized I was no longer the mother he protected. I was a burden to be managed. What neither of them knew was that I carried a secret, a $2 million inheritance they would never touch. Stay with me until the end of this story and share in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this tale travels. Bellamy's smile sparkled. "Oh, I passed a cute little wig shop downtown," she said lightly. "Very affordable." The word affordable landed like an insult. This from a woman who spent more on monthly highlights than most families spent on groceries. As they left, Marty paused at my door. "Mom, please don't make a scene today. This day isn't about you." I could only nod. After the door clicked shut, I sank into my favorite chair and let the tears come. Hot, angry tears 3 years in the making. Apparently no day was about me anymore. The cheap wig I finally found itched terribly, but it was better than nothing. I'd driven to 3 different stores before settling on a style that didn't scream Halloween. Even so, the synthetic auburn hair felt foreign and obvious under the chapel lights. Sitting in the 3rd row, not the first where the groom's mother belongs, I watched Wilfred hold court in the front. Her silver hair gleamed, her navy dress perfectly tailored. Elegant, distinguished, everything I should have been on my son's wedding day. "Doesn't Wilfred look wonderful?" a woman beside me whispered. "So refined." I nodded and smiled, just as I'd been trained to do for 3 long years. Always smile, always agree, never make waves. But the truth was, this humiliation had been building since Marty first announced his engagement. I remembered that first dinner. I had spent 2 full days cleaning my modest home until it shone and cooking Marty's favorite meal. Wilfred had strolled through the living room as if she were touring a museum of poverty. "How quaint," she'd said, fingering my handmade curtains. "It's so nice when people make do with what they have." Bellamy had laughed, a light tinkling sound that still sets my teeth on edge. "Mom, not everyone can afford a decorator." Marty had simply eaten my pot roast in silence. All the while, a secret burned quietly inside me. A secret no one knew. $2 million. That's what my sister Charlotte left me when she passed away. Charlotte, who built a fortune through smart investments and an unshakable work ethic. "Promise me you won't tell anyone right away," she whispered from her hospital bed. "Watch how people treat you when they think you have nothing. That's how you'll know who truly loves you." I kept that promise, even as I endured Bellamy's little cruelties and Marty's growing distance. The wedding march began. Marty's face lit up as Bellamy walked the aisle, the way he once looked at me when I was his whole world. After his father died, it had been just the 2 of us against everything. I worked 3 jobs, night cleaning, weekend catering, data entry by day, pouring every penny into his future. "You're the best mom in the world," he used to say as I collapsed into bed for a few precious hours of sleep. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being the best mom. I became the embarrassing mom who worked too much, who couldn't afford the extras, who showed up to school events still in her uniform. "She means well," I once overheard him tell a friend. "She just doesn't really understand how things work." That stung. I told myself it was teenage bravado, but he never grew out of it. Now, as he promised to cherish Bellamy forever, I wondered when exactly I lost him. Was it when I couldn't pay for the senior trip to Europe? When I asked him to get a job to help with tuition? Or simply when I loved him so fiercely that I erased myself. The bride looks absolutely radiant, Wilfred announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. We are so blessed to have such a perfect daughter. The pointed word perfect sliced through the room. At the reception, I was tucked away at a back table with distant cousins and family friends I barely recognized. Bellamy insisted it would be more comfortable for me to sit with people my own age. The people my own age turned out to be wonderful. Margaret, Marty's third grade teacher, smiled warmly. You never missed a school event, she reminded me. Rain or shine, you were always there cheering him on. That was a long time ago, I murmured, watching Marty dance with his new wife. Not so long, Margaret said softly. I remember you working double shifts and still showing up to a science fair. That's real love, and I realized she was right. Real love endures, quietly, fiercely, even when the world tries to erase it. Respect was never guaranteed. Love didn't guarantee it. Sacrifice didn't guarantee it. When the speeches began, Marty thanked Bellamy's parents with glowing praise. He spoke of Wyfred's wisdom, her guidance, the warmth of their family. He mentioned his new father-in-law's business advice and generous spirit, but not a single word about me. Not one breath for the woman who'd raised him alone, worked 3 jobs, and arrived wearing a cheap wig because his bride had taken the one small vanity I still cherished. As the applause faded, I excused myself to the restroom. Under the harsh fluorescent light, the wig looked even more obvious, a plastic disguise. The stranger in the mirror looked defeated until I saw something else flare back at me. Anger. Pure, clear anger. $2 million sat quietly in a bank account no one knew existed. Choices they couldn't even imagine were mine to make. For the first time in years, I felt ready. The turning point came during the cake cutting. I stood near the dessert table trying to disappear when Bellamy's laugh cut through the crowd. Oh, you should have seen her this morning, she said, voice ringing with false sweetness. Marty's poor mother was convinced I snuck into her house and cut off her hair while she slept. The group erupted in laughter. She actually accused you? Someone gasped. Bellamy pressed a hand to her heart in mock distress. The poor thing is getting so paranoid. We're worried about her mental state. My blood ran cold. She was spinning a story that turned me into a delusional old woman. Age can be cruel, Wilfred added smoothly, her perfectly styled hair gleaming. Some people just can't handle getting older gracefully. Exactly, Bellamy agreed, dripping with sympathy. We've tried to be patient, but it's becoming a real burden on Marty. He's too kind to say anything, but I can see how much stress his mother's behavior is causing him. Margaret, standing beside me, gasped softly. That's awful, she whispered, but I stood frozen, watching my new daughter-in-law dismantle my reputation in front of friends who had watched me raise Marty, who knew my sacrifices. We've actually been discussing it, Bellamy continued, lowering her voice just enough to draw everyone closer. It might be time for Petty to consider assisted living. Somewhere she can get the care she needs. Assisted living. The word slapped me hard. That's probably for the best, someone replied. My aunt went through the same thing. Wild accusations, forgetfulness. It's so hard on the family. I could hardly breathe. Bellamy was rewriting my life, turning me into a burden to be managed. And where was Marty? Laughing with his groomsmen 20 feet away, oblivious as his wife destroyed his mother's dignity, one lie at a time. Margaret touched my arm gently. Petty, are you okay? You look pale. Before I could answer, Bellamy's voice rang out again, cheerful and sharp. Oh, there she is now. Pet. She waved me over, her dazzling smile never reaching her eyes. We were just talking about you. I walked over on unsteady legs. The circle turned toward me, their faces soft with pity, wary with discomfort. Bellamy was telling us about your morning, one woman said in a careful, coaxing tone. How are you feeling, dear? I managed a steady, I'm fine. Of course you are, Bellamy said, stepping closer and resting a possessive hand on my arm. We're all here for you. That's what family is for. Family. The word tasted bitter. Bellamy's smile widened. Marty and I have been talking. We think it might be time for you to step back a little. Focus on yourself. Maybe retire from trying to manage everyone else's lives. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group, as if I'd been some meddling mother instead of a woman who had given everything for her child. I met Bellamy's gaze, my voice low but steady. And what exactly are you suggesting? My voice barely held steady. What exactly are you suggesting? Bellamy glanced around the group, gathering support like a performer waiting for applause. We just think you should find your own path, she said lightly. Maybe stop depending on Marty for your social and emotional needs. Depending on Marty? The idea was so backward, I almost laughed. I hadn't relied on him in years. If anything, he still called me when his car broke down or when they fought. You think I depend on my son? I asked. Oh, sweetie, Whifford cut in, her tone dripping with sugar. It's common for widowed mothers to become overly attached to their children. It's not your fault, but it isn't healthy. Overly attached to the boy I raised alone, working 3 jobs to keep a roof over his head. Exactly, Bellamy said, her confidence growing. Marty needs space to build his own family. It's not fair to burden him with constant drama and accusations. The word burden landed like a punch. After everything I had sacrificed, I was now a burden to a woman who'd known my son for only 3 years. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said, my voice stronger now. I never accused anyone of anything that wasn't true. Bellamy's smile flickered for a heartbeat, then returned, brighter than ever. Of course, dear, she replied smoothly. But you must understand how it sounded, how it made Marty feel to have his new wife accused of something so bizarre. Bizarre? The word came out sharper than I intended, drawing glances. Peta, Whifford said firmly. You're making a scene. Making a scene at my own son's wedding for defending myself. Faces I'd known for decades stared back with pity, not belief. You're right, I said finally, my voice like glass. It is time for me to step back. Bellamy's smile was triumphant. I'm so glad you understand. We all want what's best for everyone except me. I slipped away to the parking lot, the humid air tugging at my cheek wig. Behind me, the celebration roared on, laughter and music echoing as if I had never existed. Sitting in my car, I made a decision. Bellamy was right about one thing. It was time to step back, but not in the way she imagined. Monday morning, the lawyer's office smelled of leather and old wood. Robert Hartwell, my late sister Charlotte's attorney, welcomed me without question. I need to make changes to my will, I said, placing a folder on his desk. Inside were my bank statements showing Charlotte's $2 million inheritance and a new plan in my own handwriting. I want to remove my son as beneficiary. Robert's brows rose slightly. That is your right. May I ask why? Let's just say my family has made it clear they don't value my presence. Who will inherit instead? I want to create a scholarship fund for single mothers studying nursing. I had worked as a nurse's aide for 12 years, always wishing I'd had the money and time to earn my RN. Now I could give other women that chance. A wonderful legacy, Robert said. Any provisions for family members? None. He asked if I felt pressured. I almost laughed. For the first time in years, I was free of pressure. Next, I drove to Riverside Properties, where Janet Morrison had been a trusted friend for 2 decades. Pet, she said warmly. How was the wedding? I heard it was beautiful. Beautiful, yes, I replied. If you overlook the public humiliation. Her smile faded. I want to sell my house. Sell? But you love that home. You've put your heart into it. I did love it, I said quietly. But I'm ready for a change. Are you downsizing? Maybe a senior community? Actually, I'm moving out of state. Portland. My cousin lives there. Janet blinked, surprised. I smiled. Really smiled, for the first time in years. My new life had already begun. Rebecca had been inviting me for years. My cousin, my mother's sister's daughter, kept our connection alive with holiday cards and the occasional phone call. When I rang her yesterday, she was delighted. You should come for an extended visit, she said. The community here is wonderful. Book clubs, hiking groups, active seniors. You'd love it. I might need to make it permanent, I replied. Even better, she laughed. The guest room is yours for as long as you need. Janet, my longtime real estate agent, was still staring at me when I mentioned the move. Pet, this is so sudden. Are you sure? Maybe you should talk to Marty first. Marty made it clear at his wedding that I need to find my own path, I said quietly. I'm simply taking his advice. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved with calm precision. I donated most of my furniture, keeping only what truly mattered. My mother's china, Charlotte's jewelry, the photo albums of Marty's childhood. The hardest part was the storage unit. I filled boxes with his old report cards, art projects, and the handmade Mother's Day cards that once declared in a 6-year-old scrawl, "You're the best mom ever. I love you to the moon and back." I packed them away carefully, just in case he ever wanted to remember who I used to be to him. The first phone call came 2 weeks after the wedding. Marty's voice carried that guilty edge that told me Bellamy had said something. "Hey, Mom. Just checking in. How are you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. How's married life?" "Great. Really great. Bellamy's amazing. We're happy." "That's wonderful. Are you doing anything fun? Getting out at all?" The question was loaded. He was really asking if I'd started the independent life Bellamy had suggested. "Actually, yes," I said. "I've been busy." "Oh, busy with what?" "Just taking care of things I'd put off for years." It wasn't a lie. I had been putting off living my own life. The second call came after Janet listed the house. "Mom, what's this about selling the house?" Marty's voice was sharp. "Janet told Bellamy you've put it on the market." "I'm making some changes," I answered calmly. "You didn't mention selling." "You're right. I didn't. I'm learning to make my own decisions without burdening you." "Burdening me?" "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Bellamy made it clear at the wedding that I need to stop depending on you and find my own path. I'm doing exactly that. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said gently. I heard her clearly. She was right. It's time for me to build my own life. But selling the house? That's extreme. Where will you live? I have options. There was a long pause. "Mom, you're worrying me." "This doesn't sound like you." He was right. It wasn't like the old me. The me who always asked his permission, sought his approval, made sure every decision fit into a schedule. But that version of me had also believed that love and sacrifice guaranteed respect. I'd been wrong. "I'm fine, Marty." "Better than fine. I'm excited for this new chapter." "New chapter?" "Mom, what aren't you telling me?" "Everything," I thought. That his wife had humiliated me. That I had the means to disappear if I chose. But aloud I said only, "You don't need to manage my life. Isn't that what you wanted?" The call ended with promises to talk soon, but I heard the confusion in his voice. Good. Let him wonder. 3 weeks after I listed the house, they showed up. It was a Thursday morning, and I was in the kitchen carefully packing my mother's china when I heard the familiar sound of a key turning in the front door. Marty still had a key, of course. I'd given it to him when he was 16 and never asked for it back, even after he'd shown how little I mattered in his new life. "Mom," he called, stepping inside. "We need to talk." My stomach tightened at the sound of Bellamy's voice drifting down the hallway. "Petta, where are you?" I dried my hands and walked into the living room. They stood among my packed boxes like trespassers surveying conquered ground. Bellamy looked immaculate, as always, in a cream sweater that probably cost more than my monthly groceries, designer jeans, and those boots she loved to flaunt online. "Hello, Marty." Bellamy, my voice stayed even. "What brings you by?" "What brings us by?" Marty gestured at the stacks of boxes. "Mom, this is insane. You can't just sell your house and disappear without talking to us." "I'm not disappearing. I'm moving." "Where?" "Portland. To be near my cousin Rebecca." Marty frowned. "Rebecca?" I barely remember her. "We've kept in touch more than you realize," I said. Bellamy stepped forward, her tone dripping with sweet concern that made my skin crawl. "It's so far away." "And with your episodes, don't you think you should stay closer to family?" "Episodes," I repeated, the word a dagger. "Well, no, of course not," she said quickly. "I just meant the confusion at the wedding, the accusations. About your wife cutting my hair," I cut in, or about her telling everyone I was losing my mind. Bellamy's flawless makeup couldn't hide the flash of panic in her eyes. "I never said you were losing your mind." I was concerned, that's all. "You told guests I needed assisted living." "That's not..." She stopped, collected herself. "I think you misunderstood the conversation. I understand perfectly." I picked up a framed photo of Marty's college graduation. "You see me as a problem to manage, a burden on your marriage." "That's not true," Marty said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" "When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed something, not because Bellamy reminded you, just because you wanted to hear my voice." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Exactly." I set the photo in a box. "You've made it clear I'm no longer welcome except as an obligation. So I'm removing that obligation." "You're being dramatic," Bellamy snapped. You never said you weren't welcome. You told me to find my own path and stop depending on Marty. I'm doing exactly that. I meant hobbies, book clubs, gardening, friends your own age, not running off to another state like a runaway teenager. I'm 67, Bellamy. I don't need your permission to make decisions about my life. Marty stepped between us. Okay, let's calm down. Mom, we don't want you to move away. We want you to be part of our family. What family? The words came out sharper than I intended. The family that seated me in the back row at your wedding? The family that never mentioned me in the groom's speech? The family that thinks I'm so unstable I'd cut my own hair and blame someone else? I never said that, Marty murmured. You didn't have to. You believed her without question. You chose her story over mine. Bellamy crossed her arms. Because your story didn't make sense, Petty. Why would I do something so cruel? Because you didn't want me to outshine your mother in the wedding photos. That's ridiculous, is it? You told me Wilfred was nervous about looking old next to the groom's family. I thought it was idle chatter. Now I know better. You were gathering ammunition. Silence filled the room, heavy as stone. Marty looked between us, pale and uncertain. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Bellamy said finally. These paranoid accusations. It's not healthy. You know what's not healthy. I set down the box and faced her squarely. 35 years of putting my son's needs before my own, only to be treated like an embarrassment at his wedding. 35 years of working multiple jobs, sacrificing everything so he could have opportunities I never had, only to be labeled a burden on his marriage. Mom, Marty said softly, 35 years of love and devotion, I continued, my voice stronger now, only to find it means nothing compared to 3 years of manipulation from a woman who sees me as competition for her husband's attention. I don't see you as competition, Bellamy shot back, but her voice was too sharp. Don't you? Then why did you need to destroy my appearance on your wedding day? The room went silent, the weight of truth hanging between us. Why did you need to humiliate me? My voice stayed calm, but the room vibrated with tension. Why make sure everyone I've known for decades saw me as the crazy mother-in-law instead of the woman who raised the man you claimed to love? Bellamy's perfect mask slipped. Because you're the crazy mother-in-law. You're possessive, jealous. You can't stand that Marty doesn't need you anymore. The truth crackled in the silence like a live wire. There it is, I said softly. Finally, the real Bellamy. Marty stared at his wife, shocked. Bellamy? What are you talking about? Oh, don't act surprised, she snapped. You complain about her constantly. How she calls too much. How she treats you like a kid. How she makes everything about herself. I never... You said all of it, she cut him off. You just don't have the courage to say it to her face. Something inside me broke. Not my heart. That had been cracking for years. But the last thin thread tying me to the boy who once defended me against the world. I see, I said quietly. Mom, I didn't mean... Marty began. Yes, you did. My hands were steady as I lifted another box. You're right. I have been possessive. I have been jealous. For 35 years, you were the center of my universe, and I couldn't accept that I'm no longer the center of yours. I looked at them both, my son avoiding my eyes, his wife vibrating with smugness. But I accept it now. Here's what happens next. I'm moving to Portland next week. I'm starting a new life with people who want me around. You two can build your perfect little family without the burden of me. Mom, please, Marty said. We can work this out. No, we can't. Because this isn't a misunderstanding, Marty. This is who you've become. And no amount of love from me will change that. I opened the front door. I think you should leave. They hesitated. Then Bellamy grabbed Marty's arm. Fine, she said coldly. But don't expect us to come running when you realize you've made a mistake. When the door shut behind them, I sat among the boxes and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Relief. The worst had already happened, and I was still breathing. Finally breathing freely. 6 months later, I stood in my Portland kitchen, watching rain streak the window as fresh coffee brewed. My hair, silver and soft, was styled exactly how I wanted. No one had touched it but my new hairdresser, Sarah, who never asked intrusive questions. Rebecca had been right about this community. Within weeks, I joined a hiking group for seniors, a lively book club, and a volunteer program at the Children's Hospital. For the first time in my adult life, I was living entirely for myself. A letter sat on the counter, forwarded from my old address. Marty's handwriting, his third attempt since I left. The first 2 calls I'd let slide to voicemail, messages full of confusion and hurt. I listened to once, and then deleted. Today, I felt ready. Dear Mom, it began. I've been trying to reach you for months. I know you're angry, and I know we hurt you. Bellamy and I are having problems. I set the letter down and poured cream into my coffee, savoring a small luxury I once denied myself. Through the window, I saw Mrs. Chen from next door tending her garden. She'd invited me to dinner simply because she enjoyed my company. I picked up the letter again. She's been different since you left, colder, more controlling. Yesterday, she said I had to choose between staying married and keeping a relationship with you. If I contact you, she'll know I've chosen you over her. A quiet smile touched my lips. Bellamy's mask was finally slipping for Marty, too. I keep thinking about when I was a kid, after Dad died. Do you remember the night I was afraid of a monster under the bed? You didn't just say there was nothing there. You grabbed a flashlight, searched every corner, then made a monster spray with water and lavender. You said, "As long as you have this, no monster can hurt you." I remembered. He had been 8 years old, brave and trembling as we checked every shadow together. I set the letter beside my coffee and looked out at the rain. For the first time in decades, the monsters, real and imagined, were gone. Marty's words blurred as tears filled my eyes. "You were my monster spray for 18 years, he wrote. Every time the world felt scary or unfair, you made it safe again. I thought needing you made me weak. I didn't realize it meant I was loved." I read on, heart-aching. Bellamy never had that. Her parents were distant. She couldn't understand what we had, so she called it unhealthy, and I was foolish enough to believe her. I moved to my favorite chair, a soft blue recliner I'd bought simply because it pleased me, not because it matched anything. Through the window, Rebecca hummed in her garden next door. "I miss you, Mom," the letter continued. "Not just because things are falling apart with Bellamy, but because I finally see what I lost when I chose her version of the truth. I lost the one person who loved me unconditionally, who always saw the best in me, even when I didn't deserve it." The phone rang. Rebecca's number. "Pet, dear, any chance you're free for dinner tonight instead of tomorrow? My nephew's visiting. Widower. Loves books. I think you'd enjoy meeting him." I smiled. Rebecca had tried to play matchmaker since I arrived, convinced romance would complete my new life. What she didn't realize was that, after decades of defining myself through others' needs, I was savoring the luxury of belonging only to myself. "That sounds lovely," I said, surprising us both. When I hung up, I returned to Marty's letter. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness," he wrote, "but I can't stand the thought of living the rest of my life without my mother." I set the paper aside and reached for my own stationery, cream-colored, embossed with my new Portland address. "Dear Marty," I began, "thank you for your letter. It means more than you know. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because loving you was destroying me. For too many years I made you the center of my universe, until I disappeared in the background. And that wasn't healthy for either of us." The words came easily now. I've built a life here filled with friends who value me and activities that bring me joy. I won't give that up, not even for you. If we rebuild our relationship, it must be on different terms. I won't be the mother who sacrifices everything for her child's happiness, or the emergency contact who drops everything when you call. But if you want a mother who has found her own strength and can offer love without losing herself, perhaps we can move forward. I sealed the envelope and set it by my purse to mail tomorrow. That evening I met Rebecca's nephew, David, a retired teacher with kind eyes and an easy laugh. He told stories about his students and asked thoughtful questions about my move to Portland, never once making me feel I needed to justify my choices. "Rebecca says you're quite the hiker," he said over dessert. "I've been looking for someone to tackle the tougher trails with. Most of my friends think I'm too old for adventure." "I'd like that," I answered and meant it. I was braver than I'd ever believed. Walking home later, I felt a lightness I hadn't known since youth. The weight of other people's expectations had fallen away. My phone buzzed. For a heartbeat, I thought it might be Marty. but it was Sarah from the hiking group. Trail conditions are perfect for tomorrow's hike. Can't wait to see you there. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I typed back. It meant every word. Back in my quiet house, I sipped tea and gazed at the city lights. Somewhere across the country, Marty was probably reading my letter, beginning to understand the woman who had replaced the mother he once thought he knew. I hoped he'd find the courage to build a life of his own, free of manipulation. But whether he did or not, I would be fine. For the first time in my life, I was enough for myself. And that was the most powerful discovery of all. Now I'd love to hear from you. What would you do in my place? Have you ever faced a choice like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. And while you're here, check out the 2 stories on the screen, audience favorites that might just surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until the end.